how to make a roadmap for a successful product. In this video, we will be talking about what is a roadmap, how can we make a roadmap, why is it actually important. We'll talk about some key processes which will help you to build the roadmaps, and in the end, we will also be talking about some common mistakes and give you some bonus tips on how you can create a successful roadmap for your products. Roadmaps are super important. Roadmap helps you to put your complicated plans into actionable items. They tell you what has to be done when. However, before delving deep into roadmaps, we need to understand that it's a part of a larger process which starts with vision, strategy, roadmap, and backlog. But before going further, if you haven't seen our how to build the strategy product video, we highly recommend that you go through that video so that you understand how roadmaps can be built in a better way. So first question is, what is a roadmap and why is it exactly important? Roadmap is a very effective communication tool. Once you have everything laid on a timeline of what has to be done when, this can be shown to various stakeholders, can be discussed throughout the team, and it helps to give a clear picture of what exactly has to be done and when. So all stakeholders are more mentally prepared on when the things will go in action. Roadmaps also help you to align all your stakeholders on deciding what exactly has to be built next. Next question is how to make a roadmap. There are 6 key steps which we will take you through step by step, starting with defining SMART goals. So once we have the vision and a rough overview of strategy, from that, we try to create some SMART goals. And what do we mean by SMART? SMART is something which is specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time-bound. So before you start with the timeline, you need to have your vision and goals already there with you so that you can use it to build goals and then define them in a smarter way. Step 2 is identifying the key stakeholders and assigning them tasks. What do we mean by this? Once you have defined the goals and you've understood what exactly has to be built, you try to understand who are your key stakeholders. And based on these key stakeholders, you try to understand who can help you with what tasks. These key stakeholders can be divided in 2 ways. One could be an internal key stakeholders, another could be your external key stakeholders. And internal key stakeholders are usually the people who work internally in your company, in your product team. For example, somebody from marketing, sales, or finance. And external stakeholders could be somebody you don't have the expertise inside your team or company and you would like to hire as an external consultant. For example, somebody for branding or social media strategy to promote your products. And this is how you can divide your key stakeholders. Then you can assign them tasks. So based on the goal, you can roughly understand which kind of department can help you with what kind of tasks. Third step is defining the product themes. Now, there's a lot of question about themes, epics, stories, and features. Let me give you a short summary here. So the tasks on a very high level are called as themes. Then beneath them, when we divide the themes into sub-segments, they are known as epics. If we divide the epics further down into sub-segments, they become stories. And the stories, when divided further, becomes features. And features is what you usually see in a product backlog. This is how the structuring of the work gets divided eventually. And this is important to understand because this method of dividing helps you to understand the tasks better, gives you more clarity of which kind of stakeholder would be best suited for this specific kind of tasks. Then on step 4, we break down these themes into epics and try to prioritize these epics in order of what would give most relevance. Now, there are several tools in the market which you can use to prioritize. And this is also super important and very heavily used by product managers in their daily jobs. Few of the priority matrix which we use very frequently are value, impact, and effort of building matrix. So what we try to do is we try to create a table and we try to score these. So in the first table, we try to write value and we try to score it from 0 to 5. Then in the second column, we try to write impact, the impact it will bring on the customers or the users. And we try to score it from 0 to 5 again. And then in the last column, we try to write efforts, which is required to build that feature. Is it easy, difficult, or medium? And we try to score it again from 0 to 5. In the end, in the last column, we try to add all these scores, and the items with the highest score then eventually goes on top. And this automatically becomes a prioritized list. Another tool which we highly recommend is Moscow prioritization. And this works like the following. You could see on the screen, it starts with M, which is must have. This is absolute non-negotiable product needs that are mandatory for the team. Then is S, should have. Important initiatives that are not vital but add significant value. Then is C, could have. Nice to have initiatives that will have a small impact if left out. And W is will not have. These are initiatives that are not a priority for this specific time frame. So we try to avoid them. And this could also be another way or another framework which you could use to prioritize your tasks. So next step is adding all of these tasks to a time frame. And this is very important because this is where the actual product roadmap comes in shape. So what we do is we try to create a roadmap, which is usually in a quarterly way divided. So Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. And of course, this is a prioritized list. So this is how it looks. If we have to divide this further, then this Q1, maybe if we zoom it out, and for every task, this is how we can do it. Then the product table can further be divided. 4 key elements, or every task can have these 4 key information inside them. And this is name of the task, then the time frame in which they have to be built, then what would be the success factor or how could you measure if the task is properly done, and lastly, who is responsible for doing the task. So these 4 information can be there on the timeline itself, which can super helpful for further leasing out and completing the work. So let's take an example. If I have to define a task in these 4 segments, I will write the name of the task as task 1. Then in the time frame, I will mention how much time this will take, 4 weeks. So for example, from 6th Jan to 6th Feb. Then in the measure section, I would write the key success factor, which would tell me if this task has been properly done and would I call it a success or not. And in the last column, I would write who is the actual responsible person or department for doing this task. And in this case, we have developer John. So all of these factors together then help you to create your timeline, which is quarterly managed. This is how we create the tasks in the timeline for creating a roadmap. And once this timeline is complete, we share this list with all the stakeholders in the team. 6th step is to adapt and change. And what do we mean by this? Well, roadmaps are not set in stones. They are a living organism and they keep changing from time to time. So there'll be a lot of changes due to various factors, and this will lead to change in the roadmap. And you have to be ready to adapt them quickly and change the roadmap so that everybody in the team is aware about these changes that will affect their work. So as I promised, in the end, here are some key important things that all product managers should keep in mind before creating a roadmap. And these are, so number 1, focus on providing value to the users. This is super important. Why? Because in the end, everything, the product is entirely built around the needs of the user or the pain points of the user. So this has to be in the epicenter of your product or in the center of whatever you're building, irrespective of how complex your product gets or how complicated your processes get. This should always be your key focus. Number 2, maintain transparency with all stakeholders. We have often seen that product managers in their isolation keep changing the timelines, but fail to communicate this to the team, which creates confusion in the team because now the stakeholders do not know when exactly what will be done, and they are unable to either A, do their tasks, or B, understand when do they have to deliver. So it's very important that you keep this transparency with all the stakeholders, with all your team members, if there is any change on this roadmap. And change is bound to happen. Tip number 3 is set realistic dates. Sometimes, to make our stakeholders happy, what product managers do is they try to set unrealistic dates and try to portray a very rosy picture, which is not good, because in the end, this backfires. When the product is not delivered in time and this leads to higher costs or an unsuccessful product, then this will look very bad on you and your team. So always make sure that you have realistic timelines. Discuss it with your team before deciding and planning these roadmaps. It's super important to have realistic deadlines in this. Number 4, be data driven. I can't emphasize more on this. Product managers have to be data driven. They cannot be opinion driven. And what do I mean by this? Often in the setup, when you're working as a product manager, since you have to interact with many key stakeholders, you tend to get influenced by their opinions. Somebody might come to you and say, oh, I don't like this feature, and they don't have any key concrete data behind it. In this case, you should go search for evidence-based data and then try to change the things what he is expecting from you in the product. The most important thing in this is to say no, because this might make the other person feel bad, especially the key stakeholders who would be like your investors or your higher managers. But if you don't say no, it will also backfire in future to you, because if there is a lack in delivery, this will look bad upon your team again. Last point from my side is to make your roadmaps look visually appealing. And this can be done by using different color shades or color codes for different departments so that it makes it functionally more readable for your team. Also creates a little bit interest in reading the thing rather than a boring Excel table. So try to use colors, try to be creative with them, and try to make them as understandable as possible for your team. And your team will thank you later for this. That's all for today. If you like the video, feel free to subscribe to our channel. We keep coming out with such content on a regular basis. That's it. That's Gaurav signing off.